Hi, and welcome back for another round of Good Feels with Narcissu. When we were last together, oh boy, 7th floor. That's some boy, that's some heavy stuff. Let's just get into it. I don't know that like I can't much as like that is my thing, and sitting here and haha make the funny ha-has over the visual novel. I can't bring myself to do that with this game. I might feel a little comfortable with it later. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is just not the story for that. I can't sit here and try to crack wise about it. But let's pull as much good feels out of this as we can. All right, let's you and me. We're going to get through this together. For the next half hour, me and you, we're going to do this. And we're going to be very classy about it. The rain at morning twilight. Sometimes sleet, sometimes snow, always coming down. It's coming down, it's coming down. And I was sitting there watching TV in my usual place. The 7th floor felt as devoid of people as it always had. Anything interesting? No, completely boring. She walked to my side. Saying no more, she sat down in a chair next to me. And that was how we began watching TV on this very day as well. She was probably in the same boat as me. Nothing else to do, nothing we could do. Oh, I'd never seen her respond to the TV before. Was something the matter? Not really. Those were her usual words, but her response was anything but usual. As I looked at the screen, interested in anything that could move her so, there were nature scenes being displayed on TV. Beautiful hills and dales burgeoning with trees and flowers. And a vast spread of white flowers in the midst. I remembered those flowers from somewhere. They looked very similar to the white flowers that decorated the windowsills. Could those be the same flowers? You know, the same as those over there? I pointed at the flowers by the window as I said this. No. Huh? Really? They're of the same variety, but they're not strictly the same. She glanced at the flowers by the window for a second and then went back to gazing at the TV. She'd told me that they were different, but I couldn't see the distinction between the two. And it meant nothing to me whether flowers were the same or different. But what did mean something was this girl who usually never said a word more than she needed to. She was conversing in a rare form today, which is why I decided to follow along. Do you happen to know a lot about them? I mean, flowers, that is. Not really. Really? But I don't see the difference. The flowers on the screen and the flowers in the vase to her side. I continued to talk as I stared vacantly at the two. Look, these orchids. Are these orchids or lilies? See, they're pure white, right? I had no interest, yet I kept trying to make conversation, but she resumed her silence soon enough. And with her usual lack of expression, she continued staring at the boring TV screen. And just when I turned back to the TV, resigned to the fact that I'd get nothing more out of her, Narcissu. Why did I ever think that it was Narcissu when they literally say Narcissus in the script? What is my problem? I've been so stupid. I am the stupidest stupid that ever stupid. They literally, it's a narcissus flower. Of course it would be Narcissu. Guys, this is like you gotta give me a second here. This is like a 17-year revelation to me. This is like 17 years of recommending this game to people and saying, play this game, Narcissu. And then they go play it and they're like, oh, it says Narcissus. And they look at me. Everybody that's ever played this game, because of me, because of my dumb ass saying Narcissu, they see that Narcissus line and they're looking down on me with great pity over the last 17 years of my life are a sham. I don't know how I'm ever gonna recover from this. Okay, I think I'm recovered. Only slightly, though, like 1 or 2 hit points. What? Those are Narcissus. As she answered, she turned to face me for the first time. Her hip-length hair swaying, she pointed at the TV screen and looked at me. The ID bracelet on her wrist was white. Her skin was white, just like the flowers on screen. And I swore that I could see a tiny smile. It's a little tiny smile there. On that face that was looking at me for the first time. Narcissu. Narcissu! All right, that was a chapter. Look at us go. I forgot that this game was split up into chapters like this and that you just select them. I don't even remember that. The Silver Coop. A few days later, plunging further into the depths of winter, during this time, the rest of the world called exam period. When we were sitting watching TV, the same as ever. This is boring. So it is. This exchange that could not even be called a conversation. We'd spent all our days in this fashion, killing time without meaning or purpose. Speaking of which, when is it for you? Today. I see. So it's today. That word, that today, was the temporary discharge that she'd alluded to earlier. So, we may not see each other again. Huh? I guess that's true. Because even if she were to be readmitted to the 7th floor, that would be her last time. And in that time, I'd probably be discharged and readmitted myself. It did seem likely that things could be timed so that we could see each other again. Have you decided yet? About where I'm going to die? Yeah. No, not yet. I see. She nodded somewhat sadly, the expression of someone being discharged for the 2nd time. I still felt nothing about the situation, and I hadn't heard from the doctors about my first discharge. Come to think of it, I wondered if she'd finally decided what her own answer to the dilemma would be. Setsumi, everything's set. A lady came up to us with these words. This was probably her mother. She nodded slightly at me. I did not rise. We'll be leaving soon. But are you all ready? Yeah. Well, have a nice day, sir. She nodded slightly to me again and then turned to leave this place. She did stretch out her hand toward the girl who was likely her daughter. But the girl did not move at all. She stayed rooted to her chair even after her mother had grabbed her hand. What's wrong, Setsumi? It hurts. A little. What? Where? Your chest? Your abdomen? My chest. Stay right there. I'll call the doctors right away. She took off in visitor-use slippers in a sprint toward the nurse's station. There were 2 things left in this place, her and me, both in chairs. I did not know a thing about her disease or its status. The only things I knew were courtesy of her white ID bracelet. Her name was Setsumi, and her blood type was O. But we were inhabitants of the 7th floor. She was older than me, if just by a little. Hey, do you want to lie down over there until the doctors come? I pointed at the corner of the lounge and to the couch. It's something that I'd never even seen used. It'll support your back after all. Doesn't matter. I'm fine now. Saying those words and nothing more, she stood up quickly. Hey, wait! Don't do anything foolish! But she was already halfway down the corridor before I could finish the sentence. Oh, what are you doing? What is she doing? Nightfall, after lights out. Bored of reading manga as usual, I wandered through the darkened hospital. The usual lounge, now pitch dark from the absence of light. That was where I found her. Hey, so you're still here? Yeah. What's up? Not feeling well again? Not really. Was all she said as she stared at the window. So her discharge had been postponed after all. No one knew when the next chance would come, but it would probably be weeks from now, not days. Hey, could it be that you feigned illness today? No, that probably wasn't the right way to put it. See, you couldn't say that we weren't sick all the time. What I'm saying is, you didn't want to leave the hospital, did you? I don't know what you're talking about. Because there is no afterwards for you now. But there was no answer to my question in her silence. She had asked me so many times before about where I wanted to die, and it had always been that I didn't know yet, and that she didn't want to die, or at home. And it had always been that I didn't know yet, and she didn't want to die at home or here on the 7th floor. So you have no other place to go after all. And what of it? No, nothing. This familiar lounge, flooded in darkness, her familiar stance, looking out the window without so much as acknowledging my existence. This place we called a hospital and its extinguished lights in spite of the fact that it was only 11 p.m. or so. This was the tangent point between what was normal and what was not. On top of that, we were inhabitants of the 7th floor, bereft of any choice save one: death on the 7th floor or death at home. The outside world that she was staring at from the pitch black height of the 7th floor, the normal world. The buildings and homes were still radiant with light, and the street overflowed with people going home. And although my awareness of it was still vague, I was already an inhabitant of the 7th floor, already an abnormal existence. There was no longer any way for me to go back to that other world. And my time is at a standstill. I'd spent so many seasons, so many white overcast skies, without the want or need to converse with anybody. At first, I would look down at the healthy kids going to school and the people walking back and forth in the streets. And when I got tired of that, I always watched TV. Nothing else to do, nothing else I could do. Even when there was snow outside on the window, it was always bright and sunny inside the TV screen. A dream world stretching out before my eyes without heat, without cold, without pain. I sought comfort from my imagination, and so I amassed a huge knowledge base, meaningless trivia upon meaningless trivia, and over. And before I knew it, nothing that appeared on TV seemed real anymore. And in quick succession, it also happened to books, games, and then my family. Finally, I was unable to view myself as anything real, as if I were staring at scenes of another person's life. That's why I was not surprised even when they transferred me to the 7th floor. But if I closed my eyes, the world would always vanish. So I thought I'd be fine. And I did as I thought. And soon enough, my second discharge from the hospital. By the time of my next admission, I'd probably be too weak to stand by myself. I found my own self, the one who couldn't do anything even though she knew this to be pitiful. I found my own self, the one who had no destination, to be ridiculous. My time is at a standstill, my heart at a standstill, my chest standing still with huge scars. I'd lived for 22 years now, and I found myself utterly helpless. I wish all of these would just slow down and let me click through them on my own speed. A few days after that, the overhanging clouds had cleared up, and an endless winter sky was in their place. Oddly enough, my father had come to visit, a difficult expression on his face the entire time, but he was saying something or other about my insurance. And at the time, his eyes were not unhappy at all. I had to talk to the doctors for a bit. Saying this, my father strode down the corridor, toward that dim conference room where this had all begun, or so it seemed. My hospital room was now empty. Having nothing to do now, I reached for the weekly magazines that they had brought at the stands for me. And accompanying them, just as ever, there were fruits and drinks and get-well gifts. And to one side of the basket that the fruits were piled in, right in front of the melons that I'd so hated, what I saw was a set of car keys. The keys shone silver. Those were the keys to my father's pride and joy, that coupe that he'd sweated over from the upholstery on outwards. The coupe that I'd asked to borrow a long time ago, and that I had been told no without a single second's delay. And my still unused driver's license in the breast pocket of my pajamas. Even after it had lost its chance for use that day, it remained with me waiting, as if that were proof of its life. In silence, I grabbed the... Uh-oh! I like where this is going. It happened as if on impulse. I had no idea what my motives were either. I just seized them without a second thought, as if I were looking at a scene on TV. And the few days' worth of meds that I'd been dispensed, I stuffed those into my bag and I headed down the corridor. I snuck past the nurse's station and quickly strode towards the elevators. A bag on my right hand and keys in my left, the long neglected driver's license in my breast pocket. In front of the lounge, and the next thing I saw was the girl sitting there watching TV as per usual, staring blankly and boredly at the screen, sitting on a little foldable chair. Hey, that show any good? Does it look that way to you? Nope, not at all. The all too expected exchange. Her eyes looked as far away as they always had. Well then, shall we go together? What? I continued talking as I showed her the keys in my hand. See, I don't want it to be at home. And I don't want it to be on the 7th floor either. Well then, shall we go together? Okay. With that, she stood up from her chair. Her hair swayed with her and grazed the tip of her nose. And then she too stuffed a few days' worth of meds in a bag, and we made to leave the 7th floor together. I switched off that boring TV. The grating laughter of the MC was forever obliterated. Both of us in pajamas, clad, boarded the elevator, heading down from the top floor down to the 1st floor. At the 1st floor, we headed not to the ER entrance, but for the outpatient clinic's entrance. The cold winter air struck away at our faces, all the more strong in a wide open space like a parking lot. The two of us wandered around the spacious field, looking about ourselves with unease. And after a little while, we came across my father's car, the silver coupe. My father's pride and joy, impeccably maintained. I immediately inserted the key and opened the door. Go ahead, get in. Very well. I sank into the driver's seat. She was in the passenger seat, but she was so short that she had a hard time seeing the road. I turned the key in the ignition and stepped lightly on the accelerator, just as I'd learned during training. We're going on a road trip! Let's go! We're going joyriding! We're dying! Who cares? Reassuring engine noises filtered into the cabin. I released the handbrake and then applied the clutch. Now we could go anywhere. That was our plan. All right, let's go. Okay. She nodded slightly. Instead of replying, I shifted into second gear, and the car accelerated smoothly. Driving a stick, too, no less. I mean, I imagine, like, I wonder what the stats on that are. Like, who drives a stick and who drives an automatic? Like, I'm an automatic person. You might not think you might not have thought that about me, but I very much don't like shifting gears. Not a fan of it. It's tedious. It's a hassle. There's nothing fun about it. Unused to the clutch and swerving slightly, I advanced slowly. You're swerving. Yeah, it's my first time in a car. Well, it's the first time since I got my license that I've driven a car. I see. The exit to the parking lot was now in view, and the largish road beyond it without traffic lights. I turned onto it. We out of here, bitches! Later! The sound of honking car horns. Those were directed at me as I cut onto the road. The silver coupe complained, but did not stop as I worked the unfamiliar clutch, the stiff gearbox. I must really have rubbed the other drivers the wrong way, as the honking of horns did not seem likely to cease. But I just continued to drive without caring much. None of it quite seemed real at all. Hey, what is it? Are you scared? Do you want me to be? No, not really. Still before noon, the high-flying sun, the skies of January, above and beyond the windshield, skies so blue that they seemed almost in mourning. We had no destination. On that cold day with an alien clutch and a swerving car, on that day when we drove onto the highway in our pajamas, on that very day of winter, Ibaraki, we're on the Mito Highway. We're doing it. We are driving on the highway, looking for adventure. We're probably gonna die. Stop it, Polly. This is not the read-through where you make off-color jokes. I'm not doing that on purpose, by the way. It's not a bit. I'm not sitting here trying to make dumb off-color jokes about the people dying. About the sad game where people are dying. I'm not trying to do that. It just kind of happened. I'll behave. It's fine. I just needed a drink of water. That's probably all it was. Around when that blazing high sun had changed into a dusky orange, we were continuing to drive, just driving in any direction at random, and in a place that I did not recognize. We're stopping for a bit. Okay. I finally brought the car to a halt, a roadside somewhere, far away from civilization, no traffic anywhere to be seen, lonely. Having stopped the car in this nameless place, I started inspecting around the cabin. If there was anything useful here, we'd just run off without any preparation at all, but there was something troubling leaping out at me. Is it money? Is it money? We're probably gonna need money. With that in my mind, I first scoured the dashboard. There's nothing here at all. A couple hundred yen cluttered around the gear stick, a few manga volumes, and a cheap disposable camera. It wasn't as if we had a destination, but the onboard GPS navigation system looked broken. And I only had about 8,000 yen on me. Okay, you got a little bit of money for a joyride here. We got a few days worth of medication. We can make a trip of this. We can, like, there's time enough. There's enough here for a good time. Like, we don't even know, like, what the police situation is like yet. Like, are the police involved? Like, surely somebody has to have noticed. We're missing patients. We are missing terminally ill patients at the hospital and a car. Somebody's got to have noticed this. I would think. That was all the money I had laying around when I up and left. So combined with the pocket change I'd found, I only had 9,000 yen or so. Of course, I hadn't really expected that there would be anything in the car anyway, but this lack of money presented a problem. It wouldn't be possible for us to find lodging on this budget. And it didn't seem likely that this girl would have any money on her either. Is something the matter? No, it's nothing. Whatever. I'd half expected this from the beginning. It wasn't as if I'd thought this through enough to have things like a plan or a schedule. I just wanted to get out, right then and there. I did not want to stay where I was. Underneath the curtain of twilight, I stared up at the silver coupe again. I started up the silver coupe again. Hey, are you hungry? I asked her as I drove along. Come to think of it, she hadn't eaten anything since morning. Want to stop at a convenience store or something? No. Hey, don't be like that, and the food's much better than anything up on the 7th floor. She didn't respond. Instead, she looked straight down at the pink pajamas she was wearing. Oh yeah, that's right. I looked down at my own clothing. Sure enough, in these pajamas, we'd be conspicuous no matter where we went. Not that we weren't conspicuous right now. In any case, we'd have to do something about them. And having made my decision, I steered back towards civilization. After a little more driving, we'd arrived in a place whose name I didn't know. Probably somewhere close to a rail station. Certainly enough people around for it to be the case. There's gotta be one around here somewhere. I looked around anxiously as I drove, my back pitched a little forward, not touching the seat. Ah, there it is. At last, a coin laundromat. It looked pretty run down from the inside. It looked pretty run down from the outside, and on the first floor of a small forlorn building. This was as good a place as any. I stopped the car not far from the entrance to this place. All right, I'll be back in a second. Are we gonna go in and just gank somebody's clothes? Leaving her and her confused face in the car, I walked into the laundromat. My nose was filled with the smell of bleach and detergent the moment the automatic doors opened. The exterior of the laundromat had told no lie. The washers and dryers were old and run down as well. There's nobody here. The empty laundromat swallowed whole my murmured words. Only a single dryer was in operation, making its characteristic humming noises. I immediately walked to that machine and checked its timer. It looked like it would operate for 30 minutes on 200 yen, and only 5 minutes had elapsed so far. Whoever it was had probably gone elsewhere to kill some time. Ruminating over this, I looked around just one more time to reassure myself that no one was around. Then, satisfied that I was all alone, I put my hand on the door of the handle of the drying machine, and I abruptly opened it. The door opened during operation. The dryer spun down to a forced halt. I pulled out a clump of half-dry clothing, ignoring the heat and the humidity. And after looking around once more to make sure no one was around, I walked out of the laundromat just like that. Oh. She sounded slightly surprised when she saw my arms full of clothing. But I threw the clothes in the back seat without a word. All right, let's go. I looked back at the bundle of clothes with the steering wheel in one hand. Gaudy looking sweaters and jeans and almost nothing else, all in pretty big sizes at that. All still wet, but the car's heating would dry them out soon. Change into them whenever you like later. She didn't react much to those words either. She just looked back at the pile of clothes. Look, we had no choice. I know. Well, obviously, it wasn't as if I liked doing this kind of thing. And it wasn't as if there was anything I was saving that money for. It was just that, given the amount we had, it would be very difficult to buy new clothes. After I'd driven for a bit, around when the moon shone full above us, I stopped the car next to some public park. Probably a place for children to play, tucked away in the corner of a residential area. And there, I started looking through the clothes I'd stolen some time back. They were mostly dry by now, thanks to the heating in the car. All men's clothing after all. I'd inspected a heap once before. A veritable mountain of gaudy jeans and sweaters. Probably someone around my age, around the same size, it looked like. And sitting in the driver's seat of the car, I changed into a pair of jeans and a sweater. Hey, you should get changed too. They're all too big. Then will you go on wearing pajamas forever? Fine. She answered reluctantly, grabbed some jeans and other clothes and opened the door. Hey, where are you going? To get changed. And just like that, she started walking to the park's bathroom. You didn't think she was gonna like do it there in the car, did you, bro? Hey, that was fast. She'd come back in short order. The pink pajamas that she'd been wearing in her hands, a white shirt and a pair of jeans on her body. Well, that turned out fairly well. No answer. I'd expected this, but everything was too big and baggy on her. The jeans were too long and rolled up at the cuffs, and her sleeves of her shirt were much the same way. The pajamas were better. Come now, don't say that. It's a little warmer this way at least. She made an only slightly dissatisfied face at my words. Oh, is that it? Were you hoping for some girlish clothes? Not really. Same response as ever. I was sure that she was unhappy with her baggy shirt, but she soon returned to her usual lack of expression. All right. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to call things there. The Great Escape is underway. Where are we going? Who knows? There's no aim at this point. We're just going to be quiet and drive far away. Just like the song by Korn. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. We've made our escape. I have no idea what's coming next. Who knows? Could be anything. Like, we're now joyriding, baby. We stole a car. As far as we know, like, the police maybe have been notified. Like, we're not sure on that. I feel like we're probably going to be playing a little wishy-washy on that to facilitate a very good story. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you have a nice rest of your whatever, wherever it is that you are, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.